Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Guys Who Stare at Stats. I'm Cade Kennedy alongside Connor Gray and Andrew Santangelo. We have not as much as usual this week going on, mainly an NFL week, but hey, we've still got stuff to talk about. So as always, if you're watching, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment down below, hit that bell icon to be notified. If you're watching on Twitch, feel free to give us a follow here at twitch.tv/NWTV7. But as always, Connor, Andrew, the most important question of the day, how are y'all doing today?
It's been an odd day, It's weird not having people on campus, after finals last week. It's just been kind of strange here. Again, just a different feeling this week. Got back last night about 1:30 after the big win over Cameron, and, just enjoying a good day.
Yeah, still very weird not going to class really at all. I'm not seeing very many people parked outside and just how kind of dead the town is at times. So, yeah, but overall it's been a good day.
Yeah, well, that is good to hear. Unfortunately, as much as I hate having to do this on this show, we do have, of course, the unfortunate news, the just sad news to report, of course, that Mike Leach passing away at the age of 61. Just what an icon he was to the sport. I mean, just you look at his coaching trees and it expands all across, college football into the NFL. Everywhere it feels like there's someone who has worked with Mike Leach before, and it's just we'll miss him. We'll absolutely miss him. I mean, that was the man that if you had any question in the world, you asked it, he would give you any soundbite you wanted. We've been seeing stories all across Twitter the past few days of everything he's done, so he will truly be missed.
That he will. He was such a character and just kind of says things that made you turn your head, go like, wait, what? But he was also just really funny dude, and obviously a lot of guys really loved him, so he will be missed.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, you hear all the reporters telling their stories and everything, and it seemed like he was a good guy to be around and everything. And then once, obviously everything started happening, it shocked the world. It came out of nowhere. So, obviously prayers with his family and everything through the time. And, not an easy time, obviously, for them. Like you guys said, just a guy that's going to be missed and a big part of college football for a long, long time. And it's going to be different not having him around.
Absolutely. But getting on to the NFL, what a wild week it was, Week 14. And I say this every week, a wild week. I don't know what week wouldn't be wild at this point. We had some close calls, some blowouts, some games that, really didn't make sense. But we got to start with Thursday night, Rams-Raiders, absolute just madness in the final few minutes. Vegas up 16-3 at every opportunity. Well, folks, here comes Baker Mayfield on 2 days of knowing the playbook, coming into the game, early in the game, really, for John Wolford with his neck injury. And somehow, some way, the Rams come back and win 17-16. Just what an amazing ending this was. And for the second game in a row at that time, we had a 17-16 comeback where someone blew a 13-point lead in the final 5 minutes of the game.
Yep. It's just the classic Raiders choke. They've done this this is like the fourth or fifth time they've done it this season. Feels like it could be a whole lot more than that. But, Baker and company balled out in those last 4 minutes. So, obviously, hats off to them for being able to get the stops they needed to get themselves set up to win the game. Obviously, for anyone, whether you're a Baker fan or you're really just seeing, hey, good to see him finally making that little comeback, but obviously who knows what's going to happen this next week.
Yeah, very bad loss for the Raiders, a team fighting for that last playoff spot in the AFC wildcard, and a game the Raiders really needed, especially when you're winning the majority of that game after that first quarter. And just the defense not able to get it done. And a good win for the Rams. Cade, I know we were joking around about why you'd play Baker, but he came in, got the job done, And we'll see what he does. I mean, if he has a good stretch down here, who knows with Stafford's health? I mean, he's playing for a job maybe next year. So Baker's going to be all in for the way this season's going to end up, and we'll see what happens down the stretch. But a fun game to watch there, and even though. I mean, I know Baker gets a lot of hate on social media and everything, but you got to feel for the guy with everything he's been through in his NFL time. Just tough situation in Cleveland, tough situation in Carolina. It was cool to see this moment for him.
It absolutely was, just to see a guy that, he's just been there, I guess is the best way to put it. No matter what situation, Baker's just kind of there, whether it be the falling out at Cleveland, whether it be at Carolina, watching him slowly go down the depth chart. Gets a fresh opportunity again with the Rams to be able to ball out there in the final few minutes, have a few clutch drives after, everything he's been through this season. It was phenomenal to see. It was a moment that Baker needed, and he got it. But the next one here, the Jets taking on the Bills, another one of those where you look at, if you're the Jets, you go, okay, there's just hanging around in this. Jets defense staying strong. Buffalo, at the end of the day, though, able to get a 20-12 win in a game where Mike White for the Jets, I mean, he took shot after shot after shot and still kept coming after him.
Yeah, Buffalo plays well in this game. I mean, this is a team that, you lose Von Miller. You've been struggling in the run game all season, and they're able to get the job done here over the Jets. I will say this, so I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but once we get to the playoffs, Buffalo needs to find a way to get the run game going outside of just Josh Allen if they want to go to the Super Bowl. That really concerns me. They continue to struggle with that week from week. But in this game, I mean, the Jets fighting for their playoff hopes. Again, I expected this to be a close game. The Jets have done it all year with the defense, and holding to the Bills to 20 points is a pretty good number there. The spot you'd expect the Jets to struggle offensively is where they struggled, and they had to turn to Joe Flacco at sometime in this game, so they kind of got banged up a little bit there. I think it was concussion to White, if I remember correctly. So just a tough break there for the Jets, obviously already being banged up in other spots as well. In the running back spot. But Knight's been filling in for him well, so I like to see his progression as the season continues. I think they got a good spot there in the running back depth. But overall, Bills got the job done and got a big win to hold that 2-game lead there in the division.
Didn't he also have a rib injury?
That was the
it might have been rib. I thought it was concussion. But
concussion, I think, was a different game we had.
Yeah.
There were a lot of quarterback injuries this week.
He took 2 or 3 hard shots, and it felt like the Bills were trying to kill him. The way they were hitting him, but obviously Mike White did everything he could to try to finish that game off, even though he had to come out a couple times. But hopefully he gets better, and hopefully he has some time to recover from that injury. But obviously Bills, yes, great game, but like you said, Andrew, they got to fix that run game because it can't be Josh Allen pass, Josh Allen run the whole game, because eventually that's going to catch up to you. Where if Josh Allen goes down, the team's not going to be in a good situation.
Absolutely, and you're right. It was because it's I think it was Kenny Pickett that had the concussion.
Yeah, so we'll get to that game here in a little bit, but the next one here, Cleveland taking on Cincinnati, the Battle of Ohio, and Cincinnati finally beat Cleveland. Joe Burrow, for the first time in his career, has a win over the Browns, and it was one of those games that kind of started out slow, took a little bit to get going. Bengals started to find their rhythm, get up 20-3. You're just trying to put Cleveland away, and, that's what the Cincinnati defense did. They took care of business, held Cleveland to just 10 points.
Bengals did what they really needed to do, and Burrow finally conquered the demons that are the Browns, and obviously had a solid performance. Everyone else did what they needed to do, and they got the win.
I'll tell you what, Deshaun Watson, I get it. Obviously, he's got to shake off rust still, but he looks worse than I was expecting coming back. I know it's been a while, obviously, but I thought he'd find some type of – he can't find anything right now. And credit to Cincinnati taking full advantage of it, jumping out to a big lead. And I'll tell you what, talk about a team that's hitting their stride at the right time. That's the Cincinnati Bengals. I think they're going to end up taking this division, especially with – the up and down health of Lamar Jackson, and they're hitting the stride here. They'll get the home game in the playoffs if they're able to get that division. Look out for the Cincinnati team, and that continues to show it because when they want to put points up, they can, but it's really this defense that kind of just wears and tears on the other team's offense before the offense of their own strikes. So this Cincinnati is right where they want to be, and you saw it in this game against Cleveland.
Absolutely. I mean, Andrew, we talked about run games. My goodness, Cincinnati's run game, Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine really taking off the past few weeks. I mean, Samaje Perine just out here barreling over people at this point. That was I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card for this year.
No.
But my goodness, what a fun Cincinnati team this is turning into yet again, kind of similar to what we saw last year. You let them get hot, and, well, bad things can happen for the AFC. Speaking of bad things happening, Cowboys fans on a upset watch turned into an upset warning in the fourth quarter. Texans just hanging around. And what do you got to do to have an upset? You hang around long enough to become uncomfortable. Man, that's what Houston did. It was 23-20 late in the game. Texans, do you kick a field goal? Do you go for it? Answer C, you put in Jeff Driscoll and run a read option. Did it make sense? No. Did the Texans do it anyway? Yes. Was it a great tank job move? Absolutely. Cowboys able to get a stop and go 98 yards, and Dallas holds on for the 27-23 win in a game. Well, you look at all the stats, I mean, this is a Dallas team that did not look that great. They definitely played to Houston's level, but they're still able to get the job done.
Yeah, I really – man, anything that went – besides obviously finally getting that go-ahead touchdown, basically anything that went wrong did go wrong for Dallas for a good majority of that game. Especially one that stood out was Dak getting picked off when they were pinned in their own end zone, and they were lucky that wasn't a pick six. But my goodness, it was like obviously almost everyone in America besides Dallas Cowboys fans was really rooting for Houston to get this one, but sadly Dallas was able to find a way to win. So
yeah, credit to the unit that we were talking about all year, and that's the defense of this Cowboys team. In the end, they needed to get a stop after a very bad turnover, and they were able to get that stop. You hold the Texans on the goal line, not giving that up, and you put your offense in a spot to try to go steal the game and get the win. And that's what the Cowboys team were able to do. And credit to Prescott for having a short memory after the interception, coming right back and able to drive down 90-plus yards to get that game-winning drive and touchdown. So, I mean, obviously, as funny as it was to watch him struggle, you got to give him credit. In the NFL, it doesn't matter if you win by 1 or if you win by 100. Just get the win, and that's what the Cowboys were able to do. And in the end, that's where you take advantage of the bad team. I mean, if you're playing the Chiefs, the Bengals, you're not going to go 99 yards there or 90 whatever yards it was and win that game. So they took advantage of the bad team in the end, got the win, and that's all you have to do. But I mean, it was a fun game to watch in terms of, I don't know. I really like watching Pierce play on the Houston. I think he's going to be a good running back for a while in this league. But credit to the Cowboys for escaping there with the win. In the end, you stay in the playoff race or in the division race and everything, and we'll see where they go from here.
Absolutely. It was, like you said, Connor, it was one of those games where, you kind of keep your eye, you peek your head out almost, just look at it and go, okay, I see you, Texans. I believe in you. You don't really believe in them because, I mean, they're 1-10-1 for a reason, but you got to have some moral support for them. But at the end, Texans just could not pull it out. But speaking of teams that can, the Lions. Andrew, we talked about this. Why in the world is Detroit favored by 2? Well, I guess the correct answer was the correct reasoning should have been, why is Detroit not favored by more? Lions getting a 34-23 win, and this Detroit team, man, they're absolutely clicking right now. Goff throwing for 3 TDs and 330 in this one.
It's going to be a fun race for the last wildcard spot if the Lions keep playing like this. Cowboys Commanders and Giants holding on the last spot. They play each other this weekend with the same record, so that's going to open up the door, and Detroit's taking advantage, and you saw it here. And the defense spot we were making jokes about all season in the beginning of the year when they were giving up seemed like 30 points a game have really come together and found a good spot. I know in the end they gave up 23, but the defense helps build the big lead. You go up 28-13 and everything. You go up 31-16, and eventually you give up the late touchdown and everything. But in reality, this defense opened a door for the Lions to take advantage and get the early lead and take control of the game. And that's what they did. It really never seemed like the Vikings were going to win this game. And I know obviously they've had a lot of success late in games this year, but even in this game, it was never like, okay, here comes the Vikings. This is where the late game miracle is going to happen for them. The Lions seem to be in control from the start, and credit to Jared Goff too. Everything he's been going through with changing teams and everything. Everybody joking around with how high he was picked, and he's starting to find a rhythm here in Detroit.
Yep, and really, I think it helps for Goff. He has a coach that's got his back. Well, initially it seemed like Sean McVay and Goff were tight. It was pretty clear at some point McVay was not really Goff and McVay were just not on the same page at all. And Campbell has shown that he loves his players and he gets them motivated. And the team has finally got it together. Obviously, defense for Detroit played phenomenal, but obviously just kind of looking at Cousins and Jefferson, they both had great performance overall. I mean, Cousins played amazing, and Justin Jefferson being Justin Jefferson. So, but obviously, despite those two guys' performance overall, Minnesota's got to get some of that defense figured out because you're obviously where everyone's memeing, oh, you lost to Detroit, but people are starting to realize, hey, Detroit's actually legit good team this year for the first time in forever. So, something for them to go off of, but luckily for right now, Minnesota's still in second, but they still got to get things figured out. And Detroit, just keep on chugging, keep winning games, and you got to hang on to that. Commanders and Giants will take each other out, or at least one will go down, and you're right in there.
Lost the tie for a second time.
Listen, we'll talk about that tomorrow. I have a secret path to victory for a few teams that it involves tie of the century part 2. So I will say, though, Dalvin Cook, when he has 15 carries for 23 yards, that's not a recipe for success at all. It doesn't matter if Justin Jefferson's out here torching the entire secondary. The next one, speaking of games we thought, okay, that's kind of a close spread, and then kind of turned into the opposite. Jacksonville going to town on Tennessee. I mean, if you want to talk about watching an implosion in real time, this was the game to watch. Jacksonville just taking over in the second quarter and just did not let up. Jags at one point up 36-14. Tennessee getting a touchdown with 7 minutes to go, but it was essentially garbage time by that point.
Yep. Can't really, like you said, it was an implosion by Tennessee. I mean, obviously you're up 14-7, and you proceed to not score until with 7:15 left in the game. So that kind of saying a lot about how that the team made no adjustments after the first quarter to keep it going, or even they never made a single adjustment, and they only got their final score was basically, like you said, garbage time. I mean, Tannehill didn't play horrible, but he still didn't play good either, really throughout all. And then Derrick Henry still had over 100 yards, but that's still – you would like a lot more out of him. And then just Jacksonville just played amazing. Trevor Lawrence had probably arguably his best game of the season so far, and just everything else just fell in line for them.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to disagree with you is the Derrick Henry part. I mean, over 120 yards on 17 carries is not much you can do in a game you're losing the majority of the game and won't get the ball much because of the defense. So I think it all starts there with their defense. I will say this, I think Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence are going to be a problem for years to come. I think they're starting to figure things out at this point in the season. Obviously, it's a little late for this season, but they're really getting on the same rhythm, and I think a whole offseason together is going to do great numbers for them, and who knows what spots they're going to add as well this offseason. I think this Jacksonville team could be looking at some success next year, and already obviously there's Tennessee's there, but a weaker division where you can take advantage of it in one offseason. So I think they're trending upward, and they're in a very good spot if you're Jacksonville. Obviously, you had the big comeback win against the Ravens. Then you had a weird week against the Lions and get blown out to them. But overall, I think the Jaguars have won 3 of the last 4, and I think they're starting to find a rhythm, and it starts for them on offense. Their offense is really clicking pretty good. And I don't know, one thing I like, and maybe it's because he's a younger quarterback, and I don't know how much of the Jaguars game you guys watch, but when Lawrence kind of gets confused or something, he's not afraid to go to Doug Peterson or their offensive coordinator, I forget who it is, but he's always you can tell he's asking questions and learning on the spot. There's a couple times in this game he did that, and you just don't see that in the NFL too often. I thought that was pretty cool to see for him, just for a young guy trying to learn there in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. It's one of those where you don't see it often, but it's neat when you see it.
Yeah.
We would think quarterbacks, try to learn as much as they can, no matter how old they are. I mean, unless you're maybe Tom Brady and you're 45 and you've kind of learned everything you need to. But it's neat to see, and, I mean, my goodness, it definitely paid off. Jacksonville just shot after shot after shot, it felt like, with Trevor Lawrence just not even having to make all the difficult plays. Sometimes you just got to let Tennessee beat themselves, it felt like, out there. This was a Titans game where, I mean, Derrick Henry runs for 121 and you're still getting blown out. Like, it's one of those, there are several problems, and that defense is in a position. And also, Andrew, to add to your point about Jacksonville trending upwards, now that they've hit that 5-win mark, which, granted, isn't a lot with 14 weeks through the season, but you look, they're 2 games now from Tennessee. There's still, that door is wide open in the AFC South, which is crazy to think about. But I'm just saying, if Tennessee's not careful, they're going to watch that division lead go to 1 and then none, and then they'll be behind.
Yeah, I think they still play each other one more time this year. I think that was the first meeting between them. So
they might.
Obviously, you got to sweep them there. And then you look, to your point, Cade, you're looking at one game back, and you hold the tiebreaker at that point, obviously, if you sweep them. And I don't know either one's schedule. I know the Jaguars have the Cowboys this weekend, which obviously will be a tough game. But
You
I'm
never
not
know,
sure.
Andrew.
Yeah,
We saw what the Texans did.
They play the last game of the season.
There you
So
go.
that could be for the division. Who else? Which one are you on?
I was on Tennessee.
Hey, who they have this week? I know we're getting the
Tennessee has the Chargers.
So, I mean, that's not a gimme win either, depending on which Chargers team shows up. So, I mean, if you're Jacksonville, you're able to steal a game at home against the Cowboys. And then, obviously, yeah, I mean, you're right, Cade. This division's more in the taking than I originally thought. And, I mean, just look at the points for there. 294 against 241. Obviously, Jacksonville's defense is a little worse, but they're I mean, Jacksonville can put up points there. And, again, if they're clicking at the right time, who knows?
What are you talking about? They're perfectly balanced, Andrew. 294, 294.
It's like Titans do have Houston, then the Cowboys, and then they'll have to play the Jaguars again. So
I mean,
Houston one's at least more likely a win like at least 95%. And then the other ones, you're not so sure
they
about.
should have one more, too, right? Or the Chargers.
Count the Chargers.
They could very well go 1-3 in all seriousness.
Yeah, it'll be a fun race.
Yep.
We always seem to get one of those every year, one of those unexpected races that suddenly becomes competitive down the stretch. We might have found our contender there.
Well, the funny part, real quick, with this division, I don't know. I think we all expect it to be Tennessee and Indianapolis, both at like 10, 11 wins. Who's going to get 10, 11, or who's going to hit that double-digit number first? And yeah, now you got who's going to get the 8 first, maybe.
Yeah, the race to 9 and 8 is an interesting one out there. But speaking of teams doing well, Philadelphia, they're 12-1. They're cruising. See, Andrew, I told you not to worry
You
about
did tell
it.
me that.
I told you not to worry about it. You're over here being Debbie Downer saying, oh, well, the NFC East, the Giants are going to make this a competitive game. Well, you're right. It was competitive for a quarter. But, hey, Philadelphia took over Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders, and, I mean, everybody stepped up for the Eagles. When you're able to just fly away like you were, you're up 48-14 in the fourth, you're having a good time. You're living your best life.
I would just like to remind everyone that New York at one moment was 6-1 and has proceeded to only win one game since then.
Yeah, that did happen.
Yeah, I mean, this Giants team is so identical to Tennessee. I mean, you're going to live and die by the run game. The defense is going to try to keep you in the game, and if they can't, you're going to lose. I mean, you have to get the lead first. If not, you don't have a quarterback that's really going to power you back and win. And I think that's what you saw here. Eagles obviously took advantage of that, coming off a week against Tennessee. Kind of funny how that worked out. But, I mean, no, you're right, Cade. I had my doubts in this game. I thought this is the one, you hit the road. You've been undefeated on the road so far. I thought this is the one the Giants steal. And, I mean, again, nothing against if the Eagles would have lost that game. You won 11 out of 12 to start. But, no, this was an impressive win for me. I mean, again, you did it all areas. You had Sanders go for 100-plus yards, 2 touchdowns. Hurts did his thing. A.J. Brown, I mean, the Eagles had A.J. Brown reached 1,000-plus yards on the year, and Miles Sanders hit 1,000-plus yards on the season. So, no, it's just an incredible game here for the Eagles. I was not expecting a 20-plus win for the second straight week.
On those, I will say Philly right now obviously has. I know it's like record you're 12-1, but they basically at this point have established themselves as the team to beat in the NFC. They've been playing on all cylinders since the loss to the Commanders, which a lot of us were like, how did you lose that game, especially the way you're playing? But I think they needed that loss to kind of set themselves like, hey, we're much better than how we played against the Commanders. We're going to go out and beat up everybody.
Yeah, it's gonna, as knock on wood, as long as you stay healthy, it could be a special season there at the end. I mean, we'll see what happens, but you get Dallas, and that's the thing. You did this without your best tight end, one of your best weapons on offense. He's hopefully come back this week, and I'd honestly rather just see them wait for the Cowboys game and just survive the Bears game without him. But what do I know?
I mean, we'll see. Philadelphia's run continues to go. The Eagles still undefeated on the road. They're 6-0. And, well, we've got another Pennsylvania team to talk about that, well, they didn't have as fun of an afternoon. The Steelers taking on the Ravens. And if you enjoy Mitch Trubisky, if you enjoy the meme of Mitch, he was back. Kenny Pickett with a concussion did not come back in the game after he got hit a few times. And this Ravens team, well, they did what we expect Baltimore to do. They did just enough to win and held on in that fourth quarter when they had to. Pittsburgh made it close. What a surprise there. But 16-14, Baltimore wins in a game. Well, they had Tyler Huntley. They had to go to Anthony Brown at times. You're down to your third-string quarterback. This is kind of similar to what we've seen from Baltimore, though. Injuries trying to rack up again.
Yeah, that's obviously something that a lot you aren't able to avoid no matter which team you are, but especially seems it's always hitting Baltimore the worst. I don't really understand why a lot of that keeps happening, but again, Baltimore, even without Lamar Jackson, just did enough to win the game. I know it helps Kenny Pickett going down with concussion, but still, the fact that they were still able to win the game 16-14 is true. It's just a test that the team is just able to do enough to win.
It's fun having a good defense. I mean, no matter who's on offense, if you have a good defense, you're going to be in the game, and you can find a way to, especially when you have a kicker and Justin Tucker that rarely misses as well. And that's what the Ravens do, they continue to find ways to win. Credit to them. I mean, they're very well coached, obviously, as well. But credit to J.K. Dobbins, too. I mean, just on a tear on the run game as well for him, going for over 100 yards and a touchdown. So, Baltimore, I mean, doing what they have to do to survive. Again, I mentioned earlier, I do think they need Lamar Jackson back as quick as possible to win this division. I think he did take advantage of a bad Steelers team. So, we'll see here down the stretch what they're able to do, especially if Huntley's got to miss more time as well.
I mean, currently because both Baltimore and Cincinnati have the same record, so one slip up by the Ravens, they lose that division lead.
That is true. It'll be another fun race coming down the stretch here. The next game to talk about, the Chiefs playing the Broncos, and, well, it was smooth sailing for Kansas City until Russ started to cook. It finally happened, people, kind of. And then it was 27-21 in the third. Kansas City finally waking back up. That defense starting to wake up a bit as well. Kansas City gets up 13. Russell Wilson trying to keep him in the game, and he gets concussed. He had the big just knot on his head, basically. And once that happened, once you started to get to Brett Rypien time, Kansas City's defense clamped down when they absolutely had to and held on for a 34-28 win. And, well, this game went from over to alive to over again, and just was a weird roller coaster of a game.
Yeah, watching this game, Chiefs were doing everything went wrong for Broncos and everything went right for Kansas City until Mahomes threw two picks right at the end of the second quarter, which basically put the Broncos in a position to try to get back in the game. And then Denver did with theirs, and it's like and then obviously Mahomes threw a third one, and then I think there was only like one real drive that the defense really did not play well at all on for Kansas City, but overall the Kansas City's defense showed up to play for most of the game, just had the weird sputter where they struggled and then eventually woke back up and actually kept Denver from really doing anything. So Chiefs really got it. It's like one thing I've always noticed with a lot of teams in the AFC West. you jump up on somebody and then proceed to almost blow the game, or you do blow it. So I really do not understand. This is not the first time the Chiefs have done it, so it makes no sense why they did it with the Broncos. But Broncos took advantage of the mistakes that Kansas City made, got the points they needed. They were close to possibly doing something with it, but weren't able to do anything.
Well, two things on why. First, Andy Reid, just his style of football. He'll jump up big. He takes the foot off the gas. Trust me, I've been there before with him as well. I'm used to watching that. He'll still win the game, so it doesn't matter. But it's just the way.
It'll be enough to make you nervous.
Yeah, I've watched that plenty of times. So that's number one. I love Andy Reid. Number two, I'm going to say the same thing as we always say for college football. I think it's one of those games you expect to win. You're high favorites. You come out, start the game just that way, and you kind of just let up a little bit. It's like, oh, this team has been playing well all year. We can take our foot off the gas. And then all of a sudden you get that wake-up call and you find a way to survive. We talked about it all college football season. I think this is kind of just one of those similar things. I mean, I know everyone's going to panic. Oh, how can you let them back in the game? It's whatever. You got the win. You did what you had to do to start the game. Obviously, the preparation, everything was there. You jumped out big. So, again, I'm going to take this just the way I always say with college games as well. I mean, in the end, you won. You went up big, and it's what you're supposed to do. I know you ended up not covering in the end of the game, but, again, it doesn't matter. You did what you had to do throughout, and you just let them back in. But in the end, you won.
I think, obviously, you probably you take away two of the picks. Broncos don't even get those 14 points. Probably they only have 14 on the board, but they happen. You just got to do better not to try that again. But obviously, many fans have been worried about Mahomes, especially he's at least thrown a pick every game for I don't know when the last time he didn't throw a pick. So it's pick in a single game. So it's really nerve-wracking, especially if those mistakes keep piling up. Especially if you play against Buffalo, they'll easily take advantage of that and easily beat you up on top of already being a great offense.
Then I will say this. You'd rather, at least to me, and I don't know if it's an obvious statement, but I'd rather be the Chiefs this week than the Cowboys. Like, you went out, you did what you had to do in the beginning of the game, and, yeah, you let them back in the game a little bit, but you weren't the Cowboys where you were supposed to dominate the game and win big. I mean, you struggled all game. You were losing the majority of the game, and then you had to find a way to win in the end. So I will say that. I mean, if you want to compare two teams who were supposed to go out and get big wins against bad teams, I'd rather the way the Chiefs did it than the Cowboys.
I wasn't making that argument right there, but, yeah, I do agree with you on that.
Yeah, I agree. You'd rather know you at least came out and dominated well and you showed you still know how to start a game and have all the preparation there instead of, what do we do? We're losing to the worst team in the league in the fourth quarter. Please help.
The thing is, Chiefs got to play the Texans. So
don't lose to the Texans. If you do, there will be serious consequences.
Well, what week is it? Maybe you guys will already clinch everything. You're going to be benching everybody, so you might lose to the Texans if that's the case.
I don't know. It's one of those.
We still haven't officially clinched the division yet. So
well, that's why I was asking which week you were playing the Texans, if you knew.
This week.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
Yeah.
I mean, they could rest all their guys anyway and just go, Chad Henne, we trust. Watch it happen. But speaking of teams that are just steaming to play their best football right now, San Francisco. Doesn't matter. It's Brock Purdy season, boys. 35-7. How about this? Mr. Irrelevant coming in, out-dueling the GOAT, or at least contested GOAT. I'm not starting that debate again. But 16 for 21, 185, and 2 TDs. And Christian McCaffrey had himself another great day. And as Mike and Perkins says, going back to last game, Broncos are eliminated from the playoffs. What a surprise.
Been that way since 2015.
It's been a bit since Denver's done something. Maybe one day they'll be back. Or not. I don't know. Not a fortune teller.
But obviously, and Brock Purdy certainly just had the game of his life. I mean, obviously, he's only played like 2 games. So it's like
one of them is statistically going to be the game of his life.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that he wasn't even expected to do this well at all. Like, the fact that he led the Niners getting 35 points throughout this game, and Tampa getting a huge implosion by them. The fact that they're just barely hanging on to a division lead, it just amazes me how poorly the Buccaneers have played. And I mean, good 49ers, they've certainly have still managed to keep their season going, especially being on top of the of the NFC West. Certainly good for them.
Yeah, I was watching this game for the first time. I can honestly say Tom Brady looked absolutely terrible. Like, I'm not gonna sit up here and say he's like washed up or any of that stuff, but he looked absolutely terrible. He was missing throw after throw. He had the interceptions. Like he didn't look like he looked like a guy that was 45 years old for once. It looked like for once the age was catching up to him. And credit to San Francisco's defense. It's been there all season, and they continue to do big things. They hold teams to less than 20 points. I mean, I know it's close to 200, but on the season they've yet to give up 200 points as well. And then they obviously went out and made that acquisition for Christian McCaffrey for a reason, and that was this case. I will say this, though. That Deebo Samuel loss is huge if he can't get back on. We'll see how long he's out for a while, but I'll sit up here and say this, too. I think that's a bigger loss than Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance's. I think you could survive with Brock Purdy here for the season, but if Samuel's out, I don't think you can survive without him.
Especially if you get to the playoff,
Yeah.
If he's not back by then, your team's not going to be in a good spot. I mean, Brock Purdy could play very well, and Christian McCaffrey can ball out, but you need Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, you absolutely have to. And San Francisco is one of those, not to say it's ever a good thing when your quarterback gets injured. Obviously, it isn't. But if you were to have a system in place to where you can overcome that, San Francisco proved that their style of football works the best, where you rely on your defense and rely on your strong run game to aid your quarterback, probably to the best of anybody.
Well, he's got arguably the most weapons. I mean, out of anybody. You got arguably probably not even that arguable, but probably the best defense in the NFL. You have arguably the best running back in the NFL. You have arguably a top 3 tight end in the NFL. And then Samuel, I don't know where you want to put him, but, he's probably close to a top 5 wide receiver. And so, you could not ask for more weapons if you're Brock.
Absolutely. And so I'm interested to see, as teams start to try to figure Brock Purdy out, how he works as a quarterback. It's going to be an interesting development these next few weeks. But if you're San Francisco, the division race got a little bit easier. And if you're Tampa Bay, it got a lot harder because Carolina, Sam Darnold, they're believing. Just run the ball, and it works. 30-24, Carolina upsets Seattle. First road win of the season for the Panthers. And, Chuba Hubbard goes off. Deontay Foreman had a good game at times. Raheem Blackshear. Everybody went off for Carolina, it felt like. It was one of those days where they're just able to run the ball, and it helps when your defense is able to force Geno into making some bad throws.
Yeah, remember when we talked about it with Matt Rule? Run the ball, help your quarterback out. It actually works. Well, this is the perfect example of it.
It actually worked.
But it's kind of funny. I feel like Carolina's playing better since the Christian McCaffrey trade, and I feel like Detroit's playing better since trading away arguably their best weapon in T.J. Hawkinson. It's just funny how that works sometimes.
So the idea is for teams to trade away their best player, and they'll play better.
Exactly. That's got to be the recipe. So, next year, Kansas City, trade Mahomes.
There you go.
And
it's happening. It's happening. It's going to work.
Trying to find someone to pay him $500 million.
But, no, this game, credit to Carolina, battling on the road, finding a way to steal this game from Seattle. But, no, if you're Geno Smith, not the game you wanted, obviously, and we'll see how this plays out, but you wanted this game to stay in that division race. But now you hope for, obviously, I think you're 2 out now, so you still got a chance, but now you're more looking at the wild card spot, and hopefully you're able to get back out and get a win this weekend.
I also want to bring up the what if of probably the year so far. What if New Orleans beats Tampa Bay? We would have a 4-way 5-8 tie in the NFC South. Now that would have been something. Of course, it's still a battle. Tampa Bay 6-7, Carolina's 5-8, Atlanta's 5-8. Keep in mind, Atlanta's switching to Desmond Ridder as their quarterback for the rest of the season because they overachieved in their tanking. So I don't know what if you're Atlanta, hey, you have till Sunday to rethink your decision. But New Orleans is 4-9, and they're the trailer of the pack, I guess is the best way to put it. But still, that NFC South, I don't know if anyone's good in that division, but someone's going to win it.
Someone's going to have to win it, even though
we're going to have to make someone win it.
Well, one of them gets to host a playoff game, too. That's the
true.
funny part.
One of them gets Dallas.
Yeah, one of them's going to host Dallas, so good luck with that.
Hey, that's a great reward for an undeserving season.
That's true.
There you go there.
and Dallas proceeds to lose to that team.
That
I
would
would
not
laugh.
surprise me. That'd be
That
wonderful.
would also be a Dallas thing. You know, if we want to have a classic Dak moment, comes in, throws 3 picks, you know, very nice. Cowboys, we them boys. But speaking of other teams, Chargers 23-17 over the Dolphins. Big win for LA as they continue to, well, do what the Chargers always seem to do. Look good one week, look bad the next. This week it landed on good, so Justin Herbert, 39 for 51, 367 and a TD. Tua, though, 10 for 28. I mean, rough night again for Tagovailoa.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, Chargers went out. They needed a big bounce-back win. I think they lost to the Raiders the previous week. And the Chargers did that. A nice win over a good Miami team. Obviously, that helps Buffalo out as well in that division. But, again, the Chargers are right there in the playoff race. They're fighting for their season, and they were able to go out and get the job done. I think the big thing here is a lot of people, including myself, expected this defense to be really good this year, and they've struggled for the most part. But in this game, they really stepped up big time and helped get this win. So if the defense can really get into rhythm here down the stretch, this is the Chargers team you're scared of.
Really nothing to add to this.
Okay, just checking. But the final game then, I guess, to get to. What happened on Monday night? We've talked about it all year. Arizona, hey, if they can stay healthy, they might be able to slowly get back into this. That did not happen. Kyler Murray, unfortunately for him, tearing an ACL. You just absolutely brutal for him. Colt McCoy, he comes in, he does his best, but it's not enough. New England getting a 27-13 win as the Pats cruise in the second half of this one.
Especially since Kyler's injury was a non-contact issue. I mean, obviously ACL tears can happen in contact or not, but still, you hate to see it when it's non-contact. And looked like he was going to be making a move and just went down, and it was hard to see that, especially Arizona was trying to make something out of a lost season. But I probably expect from here on out the team's probably just going to go down even further. I probably would not be surprised if almost all the coaching staff gets fired.
Yeah, it's been a tough year for Arizona. They've had a bad year in terms of injuries. James Conner missed a lot at the beginning of the year. DeAndre Hopkins was suspended. Now you lose Murray. I don't think it's a fair year to judge the Cardinals, if I'm being honest. I don't think they've had maybe 1 or 2 games where they've actually had a full team, and that's including the beginning of the year. And this only speaks volume for once Murray goes down, and obviously it's going to be a pretty tough end of the year here as well now without your star quarterback, and we'll see where they finish up and get a good draft pick-wise. But I don't know. I think a lot of these pieces are still very good players. I think Arizona's fine for their future just because, again, these guys weren't healthy. Next year, that's your biggest thing in the offseason. Make sure these guys are ready to go. And you lose Zach Ertz for the entire year. I think he got hurt in week 6 or 7. Marquise Brown goes on the IR. I mean, you name a guy on this team, and he probably had some type of injury, unfortunately, for Arizona. Because I think this team, if they're healthy, I think they win this division or at least they're competing for the division. Sorry, and I think they're better than Seattle. And they're competing with San Francisco. So I don't think it's a fair judgment year, from being honest, for Arizona.
Like, I agree with that statement, like, completely. But knowing how some of the NFL is, they won't really want to see it that way. The ownership probably won't see it that way, and probably tell Kingsbury to take a hike, even though he's not the problem. He's not the problem. This team just can't stay healthy. It's been their main problem. Like the last couple seasons where they've been playing really well, a key injury happens, the team starts to struggle. I mean, it's one where one key player cannot get hurt, or at least needs to stay healthy most of the season and only be hurt at a better time, which would help them. But obviously, losing everyone does not help.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those where it's going to be another rough season for Arizona, just going through injury after injury, like both of you have said, especially Andrew. You know, I don't know if they have had a game where everyone's together. I don't think I can name one off the top of my head where you've had both star wide receivers, your good tight end, and Kyler Murray all out there in the same field for even one drive. It's just been that type of season for the Cardinals. All you can do now is hope for the best in the draft. That's really it.
And that's the thing. They trade for 2 guys. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at – if this is the end of the season right now, they have plenty of time to go get ready for next year. You're going to start wide receiving core next year with DeAndre Hopkins, Robbie Anderson, and Marquise Brown, and then Zach Ertz, the tight end. You're talking about one of the best receiving cores in the league at that point if you add the tight end in there as well. And then James Conner's no joke at running back. So, I mean, obviously ACL is a pretty big injury, so Murray's most likely not even going to be ready for the start of next year. So we'll see what they have to do. They'll have to get a good backup then, at least to start the season as well.
Absolutely. It's going to be a rough season, but hey, if you're a Cardinals fan, like most teams have to say, there's always next year. You always just got to keep looking forward and try something to stay optimistic. But that will do it for this episode. Looking back at every game we've gone through, any final thoughts to get this thing recapped as we get ready to move on to next week?
Again, I mean, I think the biggest storylines was the Detroit big win. You keep yourself now in great position. I'd say the teams you want to worry about after this week is Tennessee. You get blown out back-to-back weeks. Like you mentioned, Cade, bringing up a good point there with the division leads shrinking. And again, you didn't just lose 2 games. You got blown out 2 weeks in a row. And then, as Connor mentioned with the Giants, starting 6-1, I think that's the other big storyline is where does this Giants team go from here? You got a big game against Washington this week, and we'll see how they go. But Washington's got the advantage coming off a bye there.
I will say, adding on to that with the Giants, is that even if whether you make the postseason or not, you got to decide, are you going to go after a quarterback in the draft to replace Daniel Jones, because he hasn't really been playing overall very well at all. I mean, he's had games where he's played well, but a lot of other things did not go right for the other parts of the offense and the defense. Eventually giving up something that they could have probably won a game on, or he's played awful, and that really definitely affected how they played. But it's be something to see. And another one is, will Eagles still keep up the momentum of being the best team in the NFC, and obviously keep that number 1 seed? And obviously having to go through Dallas again and other stuff, and we'll just kind of see how other things play out.
Yep. So real quick on that, in terms of Giants, with Stafford coming back, I would not be surprised if Baker Mayfield or Matt Stafford is a Giant next year.
There you go. There's a bold take for next year. Got to get those started early. But as always, we thank you for tuning in. If you're watching here on Twitch, hey, feel free to give us a follow. Twitch.tv/NWTV7. You want to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram? It's the same thing, NWTV7. If you're watching on YouTube, as always, we appreciate it. Episode 97 getting ready to be in the books. You can subscribe, hit that bell notification to be notified every time a video comes out. Leave a like and leave a comment as well. We want to hear what you think. We love hearing what you think. And until next time, for Andrew Santangelo and Connor Gray, I'm Cade Kennedy. We will see you tomorrow, everybody, and have a great one.